feel, um, especially around this time. You sort of may have the post-holiday blues, or we just have a lot going on right now, and it's a big balancing act. And we just want to give you some tips and pointers on how to manage that and how to identify those things and come up with some strategies so that you're not alone in this current state that we're in. Okay, and then after Dr. Hepburn, you will hear from Whit Morgan. He is the communication specialist with the Emory Healthy Aging Study, and we talk about this study every week, and we want to compel you to participate and join, and let us know if you are on the fence or if you're not sure what this study entails. Now is a great time to inquire and ask and get clarification about, what exactly you may have reservations about. It's an easy study. If you've never participated in research, that may be sort of your gateway entrance into research participation. Okay, then you're going to hear from Matt Doran. He handles a lot of the technical issues with the Cognitive Empowerment Program, and he's going to close us out with an update about the CEP program. And last week, we made the announcement that immediately after BrainTalk Live, you would be joining. I'm hearing beeping. I'm not sure what that is. Okay. The Cognitive Empowerment Program will be hosting their respective session immediately after BrainTalk Live today. And so he'll give you an update about what you can expect during that session today. Okay, so I think I've done all my housekeeping. Remember, post your questions that you want Dr. Parker to respond to, and even Dr. Hepburn. I mean, they are the best in class when it comes to all things related to older adult issues and memory and aging. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, because what do we say every week? What's good for your heart is good for your brain. And we want to give you these practical, easy ways to participate in exercise and be active at home. And so you all have given us great feedback, and thank you for your comments and and all of your encouragement. And so John's going to come on for about 10 minutes and get our hearts going and get us pumping and exude all that energy through the screen for us. And then we'll turn it over to our formal speakers and then sign off, and then you can sign on to the Cognitive Empowerment Program if you choose. Okay, hi, John.
Hey, it's a new year. Make sure you have a sturdy chair. And today we're gonna keep it very, very simple. We're gonna warm up real good. So go get that chair. First of all, I wanna welcome everybody to the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, and it's gonna be a great year. Here we go. Let's warm up. Legs wide. We're gonna stretch a little bit and over. Other side. To the middle. Fingers turn out. Up. Release. Turn. Switch sides. Make sure it's smooth now. To the middle. Here. Down. Hands out to the side. Up. Here we go. This arm and circle. Other way. We're getting that rotated cuff. Switch. Other hand. There we go. Other way. Good. Ankles. We up, down, up, down, up, down, up. All right. Turn them out, in, out, in, ankles over. Good. Roll them over. You're getting the shins, the outer shins, the Achilles. Let's work these hips, feet wide and down. Press, and I'm pressing this one in. Switch. Good. Both hips in, out. In, out. In, and out. Good. We're gonna get that rotator cuff. Rotator, the hip. Rotate it. Other way. Rotate that hip flexor. Good. Other leg. Then the other way. 2 and 3. Good. All right. Next one. I want that neck turn. Other way. Rotate it. Side to side. Up and down. Left to right. Good. Shoulders up, back, down, forward, up, back, down, forward. Okay, let's get the waist. I just want you to turn. Keep turning. All right, I'm gonna turn at an angle. I want you to arch like a cat. Straighten it up. Arch like a cat. Straighten up. One more. Arch like a cat. Great job. So let's get that cardio in now. Here we go. Here we go. I'm about to really go to work. Y'all ready? Here we go. Tap with me. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Look at them arms. Upper body. Come on. We get that lower chest. We get that back. Lower body. Come on. We engaging the abs. We get those hips out. Come on. Woo! Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Good press. Upper body. Press it now. Press now. Press, press, press. Let's go angle. Up top. Press. Watch it now. I'm going heel toe. There we go. There you go. There you go. Press. Pull back. My elbows down low. Pull. 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 Press. Watch my feet. Now we engaging that entire body. Come on. Come on. Come on. Get them hands up. Get them hands up. Press. Go. Come on. Come on. Press. Watch it now. Hold on. Hold on now. Here we go. Come on. Come on. job, okay? We almost there. Okay, I want y'all to take your time. I need to work those glutes a little bit, and let's get these legs strong. I just want 3 today, just 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Turn your body. And 1, 2, 3. There you go. Turn. 1, 2, 3. There we go. I just want 3. We're gonna lift that knee up. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Other side. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Feet together. We're gonna stand up and sit down. And go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Feet straight. We're in the center of the glutes right now. And 1, 2, 3. Let's go wider. Turn them toes out. We really engaging them hips in the inner part of the glutes. Ready? And go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Everybody say, I need to work on my lower back. So I just want you to go down, 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 and rest. I want it wider. I want it wider, legs wider. Down, down, come on, down. We get a nice stretch, and we working that lower back. And rest. Okay, this leg wide, and we're gonna bring it across. We really engaging them outer abs and the hip. Ready? 3. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Other side. 1, 2, 3. There we go. I want this right leg straight. I want you to lean back. And we going to pick this leg up. 3 times. Back. Go. 1, 2, 3. Other leg straight. And 1, 2, 3. Great job. Okay. Now, what I want is a kick. I want a little kick, but under control. Under control. 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Other side. Here we go. Last one. 1, 2, and 3. Great job. We took it easy. We stretched. We got that body going. Now next week, I'm telling you, you better have your rags, your water bottle, your good chair, because we're going to do cardio the entire time. I make sure we're going to keep that heart ready. And I want to say, I'm John Lewis, and see you later. Bye.
All right. Thank you, John. Round of applause for John. We appreciate you so much for getting us going and moving and getting our hearts up and giving us all kinds of great ideas of what we can do at home to be active and fit, even during a pandemic. So what are we in for? I see we have 185 people on. And so let me tell you what you can expect. So Dr. Parker is on, and she's going to be responding to your frequently asked questions. So she's going to take 10 minutes to answer as many questions as she can. I see there are already like 8 questions in the chat. Then you're going to hear from Dr. Ken Hepburn. He's going to talk about caregiver burden and guilt and managing that. Next, after Dr. Hepburn, you're going to hear from Whit Morgan. He's going to talk about the healthy aging study. And Whit, I would, if you can, go ahead and put the website link and all your contact information. A few people have inquired about the study, so that may help them sort of know what to expect, because in the pre-event poll, I see we have 13 new viewers. So again, welcome and thank you for completing the poll. And then we're going to close out with Matt Doran. He's with the Cognitive Empowerment Program with our Emory Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. And he's going to be talking about the program immediately following BrainTalk Live. It is a separate link. Matt, if you can post that link in the chat for people so that they can be prepared. So we're offering a variety of programming, but we love it when you join us here every week for BrainTalk Live. So Dr. Parker, welcome. Hello. I'm turning the floor over to you so you can answer all these hot questions.
Happy to do so. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for joining us on our BrainTalk Live. I mean, somebody needs to give us a real award for making sure that you show up on time every weekend. Kudos to Cornelia for keeping us moving and keeping us motivated. So let me ask a couple of questions. I did answer one of the questions in the chat a little bit earlier, and the question was, do different kinds of dementias coexist with one another? And if you remember some of our earlier lectures and talks, we talked about the different types of dementia, and frequently they overlap. Most commonly, people who have Alzheimer's type dementia, I mean, what causes dementia may be different. Dementia end result is the same, but what causes it may be different. Some people, more than 50% of the people who have a diagnosis of dementia have Alzheimer's type dementia. Another almost 20% of the people who have a diagnosis of dementia have a combination of Alzheimer's dementia with Lewy body dementia or Alzheimer's disease with vascular dementia. And those are the things that are related to strokes. So the answer to the question is yes. In any one individual, you can have pathologic features or things that look like Lewy body. You can find Lewy body inclusions in the brain, autopsies of people. You can find amyloid and tau accumulations in people who have died with dementia, as well as Lewy body. And you can find evidence of vascular disease, particularly in those people who have had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So the answer to the question is yes. Different types of dementia can coexist, and which comes first? You have to kind of go see both your primary care doctor to kind of sort those things out, and your neurologist, who in consultation with your family physician will order the right kinds of examinations to kind of help you tease that out. Okay. Another question that we had, and I'm going to answer this one. I'm not exactly sure where it came from. It had to do with tinnitus, which is ear ringing, ringing in your ears. Okay, one of the risk factors for dementia is hearing loss. People with hearing loss have a 5-time greater risk of developing dementia versus people who don't. Now, why is that? I don't really have any idea, and it's something that they are studying to look a little bit closer at, and we don't have, and somebody did say, do you have studies on test here? Here at the Goizueta Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we are not presently conducting studies on hearing loss and dementia. But what you need to appreciate is that if you have ear ringing or ringing in your ears, you need to get to the audiologist and kind of figure out what's going on, because most people who develop tinnitus or ear ringing have some degree of hearing loss. And like I said, people who have hearing loss have a 5-time greater risk of developing dementing disorders. Not exactly sure why this is, but you're spending a lot more time trying to hear things rather than process the information. So if your temporal lobe, which is where we process hearing, thoughts, and emotion, is not being properly stimulated and utilized, it's going to atrophy and not work. So in Alzheimer's, an area of the brain that atrophies is something called the hippocampus. So if you have a PET scan and we look at your PET scan and we can see that you have hippocampal shrinkage or atrophy, we know more than likely the kind of dementia signs and symptoms that you may be experiencing may be coming from Alzheimer's. On the other hand, if you're looking at somebody's PET scan or, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. If you look at somebody's PET scan and you see temporal shrinkage, you might think a little differently. You might not think Alzheimer's, maybe you're thinking something else, but hearing is associated with your temporal lobe. So bottom line, for ear ringing and hearing loss, You want to get to your audiologist and get a comprehensive assessment of your hearing, because people have a tendency to just ignore it. But ignoring hearing loss makes it more difficult for your brain to process information and may make it more likely that you'll have some problems with the way your brain processes what it's hearing. So get to your audiologist, get your hearing checked. If you're concerned about memory loss and other sorts of things, you need to discuss that with your primary care doctor, who can do certain examinations and get you to a neurologist or other specialist who can help with that diagnosis. Okay, now other things, people were talking about studies, and Crystal, I'm going to need your help here. We have a number of different studies that are going on at our Whit Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. But one of the things that's very important for you to know is that if your primary care doctor or your neurologist is not necessarily associated with Emory, in the Emory Neurology Department or Primary Care Department, you may not learn about the different studies that we have, because they're trying to make sure that these studies are conducted on patients for whom we have a lot of clinical information, which means that if your primary care doctor is in the Emory healthcare system, we can probably look up your chart and your number and look up medical information. Study, that's where we take people 75 years of age and older with normal brain function and abnormal brain function, and kind of put you in our longitudinal studies. Emory Healthy Brain is another one, and you'll hear about that a little bit later. But for the Emory Memory Study, the coordinator is Samantha Heldenberg. We have two coordinators who do like a preliminary test over the phone to see if you're eligible for that. And that's our own Crystal Davis and Natalie Zimmerman. So Crystal's going to put in her contact information. So if you're interested, if you're 75 years of age and older and you're interested in longitudinal studies here, we'll put you in our memory study. We'll screen you for participating in our memory study. But being in our memory program makes it more likely that you can be us. What we do during the memory study is we kind of figure out what kinds of studies you might be eligible for, in addition to determining whether you've got normal cognition, normal brain function, or mild cognitive impairment, which is some problems with memory, but it doesn't interfere with your overall day-to-day living, and people who have frank dementia. If you're a part of this study, ultimately we want, when you no longer need it, your brain, so that we can look at the pathologic features that may be present there to help us understand what kind of brain dysfunction you had, or if you're normal, if you have, and there are people who have normal brain function, but when you do an autopsy on them, you can see the pathology that's associated with Alzheimer's. So if somebody's functioning normally and they had a brain that's riddled with Alzheimer's pathology in terms of the accumulation of the A beta and tau proteins, what made it such that that person functioned normally, where you have another person who doesn't have a whole lot of pathologic features that are consistent with Alzheimer's, but had severe dementia. So that memory study is something that Crystal is going to put her name and number in the chat. You were interested, contact Crystal and she'll refer you to where you need to go. We also have another study called the Heart Study that Dr. Wharton probably talked to you about back in December, which studies African-American caregivers who likely have high blood pressure. That's a study specifically for African-Americans. And Dr. Wharton did discuss that in her last discussion. Her contact or her coordinator is Danielle Verbally, and Crystal is going to put that in there. You're going to hear a little bit more about Emory Healthy Aging Study and the Emory Healthy Brain Study from Whit Morgan a little bit later, so I'm not going to talk about that. I just want you to know that there are opportunities for you to participate in research here at our Whit Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. Another study, the other questions, and I'm going to close with these two, have to do with the questions in the poll. You know, how do you know you've got normal brain aging versus Alzheimer's, and should you be worried? Key thing is, if your memory loss interferes with your conduct of your daily activities of living, activities of daily living, like if you can't remember that you ate, or you needed to change your clothes, or you bathed, or something like that, something that is obvious to other people that you forgot, that might be indicative of onset of dementia. Oh, my grandchildren are coming and I forgot to schedule them. Well, you know, I forget meetings all the time. I had a meeting yesterday, but I also had a root canal yesterday. Does that mean I'm demented? No, it means I was focused on my root canal. So the point of this is that if you are having and experiencing memory loss or memory dysfunction such that things are abnormal. Now, I think putting things in your refrigerator that don't normally go there is a little suspicious, but if that's happening continually, that's something that needs investigation. My mother can't ever find her purse or her wallet, but we found it in the refrigerator. That's odd. That's very odd. And that merits some kind of investigation. For something that helps you understand how odd that is, there are two movies that I really, really like. One of them is The Notebook is one. That's a good movie for you to look at. The other one is, oh, not Alice. Oh, Away from Her, starring Julie Christie. You can get them on Netflix or something. She was washing the dishes and she put the pot away in the refrigerator. And her husband thought it was odd, but just kept watching her. Anyways, long story short, she ended up being diagnosed with dementia. And the last one is Alice. I want to say Ask Alice.
Still Alice.
Say it again.
Still Alice.
Yeah, it's the one with Julianne Moore.
Right.
So those are three movies. Ken, say it. I've got Alice in my brain, but I can't say the title. Say it again, Ken, please.
Still Alice.
Still Alice. Thank you, Ken. The three movies are Still Alice, Away from Her, and The Notebook. Those are people who were functioning normally and they had some little abnormal behaviors that kind of triggered an evaluation and assessment for Alzheimer's and other dementias. I'm going to answer questions in the chat. This time I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Kenneth Hepburn, and thank you for your attention.
You're muted, Cornelia.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Parker. Ken, I'm going to make you a co-host, and so you can share your slides. And as Dr. Parker mentioned, she's going to respond to your questions if she can get to them online. And this session is being recorded, so if you want to go back and take a refresher course, you can. We will send out the link in the next 48 hours. Okay?
Go. So, good afternoon, Happy New Year. Cornelia assigns me topics, I think, based on what she knows of my background. So I'm going to talk about guilt, which is a perfect for my Catholic childhood background. Guilt and burden, and there's a real link to some of the questions that were posed in the question answer in the chat. And I'm just going to say beforehand, issues of stress, all of the stress that caregivers are under, affect thinking. I mean, when we're under stress, when we're under pressure, we just don't necessarily function as well as we do when we're a little bit calmer, a little bit more relaxed. And particularly if we're interacting with people who are living with a dementia or providing care for those persons, we begin to worry, is that happening to me? I think the first place to worry is, am I under stress? And should I be looking at that? And should I be doing something about that? So I'm going to talk about guilt and burden, and a burnout, rather, guilt and burnout. And what this topic has made me do is kind of go to the dictionary to really understand. I think we use words kind of loosely, and guilt is one that caregivers are really kind of almost notorious for talking about themselves as feeling guilty. So I want to explore that. But one of the things that the topic prompted me to remember was a song by Leonard Cohen Judy Collins actually made this famous. And the line, when you're not feeling holy, your loneliness says that you've sinned. And I sort of translate that into when you've not done things perfectly, that makes you feel like you've done something really wrong. And that's what I think happens a lot with caregivers. And we've been since March in a condition of isolation that it really just magnifies all of these feelings of not doing things perfectly. We're creatures that don't understand that not to let the perfect become the enemy of the good. So anyhow, guilt. So I went to a dictionary, and the first thing the dictionary says is the fact of having committed a crime. That's guilt. But as I read further down, the third definition is a feeling of responsibility or remorse for some real or imagined offense. So, I mean, just read through that. That is extraordinarily vague, but that's exactly what I think we're talking about in this talk. It's this vague sense that I feel bad, I feel responsible, something I must have done, or I did something, I really did something, or I didn't do something that I wanted to do, but I have this vague feeling. So then that pushed me to think, well, what is remorse and regret? So, and I love this, remorse is defined as a deep and painful regret for wrongdoing or a sense of compunction. And the Latin for remorse translates to having been bitten again. So it's as though we have this innate understanding of a feeling that just doesn't feel good. It's a vague feeling of regret, and it happens again. We feel it again and again and again. So guilt to remorse, the sense of vague, again, regret. And then regret, I think this becomes even more interesting, is to feel sorrow, to think with a sense of loss or a feeling of sorrow for an act or a fault or a loss. The word that really strikes me in here is loss. And the synonyms that are provided in the dictionary for regret are to mourn and to grieve. So now begin to put these things together. Come away from an experience with an interaction with a person for whom you're providing care. And you have this sense of something just happened. I feel unimagined, I did something wrong. And then this deep and painful feeling. And at the root of it, there's a sense of loss. And that is real. Something is lost in dementia. And there's something lost in the relationship. Person is there. You're there. But the connection between the two of you is eroded by the illness. And that is something that we mourn and we feel grievance. So the guilt one might feel for an interaction that is imperfect may actually be, as much as anything, a reflection of this really deeply felt sense of loss, that you're grieving the loss of that relationship. Somewhere in this definition is the word compunction arises, and that comes as an uneasiness or hesitation about the rightness of an action. So it's again this sense of that may not have been perfect. And so the may not have been perfect becomes operationalized as I did something wrong, or I feel like I did something wrong. I feel guilty. So there's a misalignment that occurs when you try something as a caregiver And if it doesn't quite work perfectly, there is perhaps a natural tendency to say, gee, I did it, it was wrong. So one really makes it important to make a distinction between something that didn't work and something that was wrong. Because it's not wrong, it just didn't work. So burnout and exhaustion, the second part of what I'm asked to talk about. Burnout is defined in the dictionary as exhaustion, which is interesting. Then it goes on further to talk about the breakdown of a device from excessive heat or use. And that's you as a caregiver are in the role, just like a clinician is in a role. And we read about frontline workers being exhausted by the COVID pandemic because they're just being used and used and used. They're worn down from excessive heat, excessive use. So it's to be used up completely and to be drained of strength and energy. So caregivers are faced with these two challenges, right? On the one hand, they're working so hard, and if they don't get it right, there's this potential for feeling like it was wrong. It was really bad. I did something wrong. And at the same time, they're working so hard, their reserves are being eroded. And so they don't even have the capacity. Caregivers often don't have the capacity to say, boy, let me back off here. So I think the practical link between guilt and burnout is that really the right order is burnout and then guilt. That there needs to be a real appreciation for the enormous work caregivers do, and the fact that the capacity to do things well is diminished when drained of energy of strength, which is exhaustion. And so caregiving, when depleted, can produce less than perfect results. And this can contribute to or produce feelings of uneasiness and remind one of, sort of produce a recurrent sense of loss. So what is one to do? I think the starting place is to realize that there's a toxic combination between the natural drain that caregiving produces and the isolation under which all of caregivers are functioning thanks to this pandemic and the restrictions. So the first place is the hardest place for the caregivers, and that is to give yourself permission to focus on yourself, to take care of yourself, to do things for yourself, to get help for yourself. I mean, it's just so difficult when the grind is there to break away from it and say, I got to do something for me. Reaching out is important for help. That's really important, but not just for help. You know, remember that you're part of a larger world, even though you're isolated. I have found myself over the last 3 or 4 months reaching out to people in my address book to whom I haven't reached out in years. I'm just kind of saying, are you there? How are you? What's going on with you? Tell me about you, so that I can remember that I'm connected to the larger world. And I'm not a caregiver. If you're a caregiver, it's doubly important to remember you're connected to a larger world. I think the other thing, and this ties in with the notion of loss, can you think of activities that you can share with the person that will promote a sense for you of being connected with the person? It may be, I always go to music because it seems like a very natural thing to watch a music video with somebody, or to watch a religious service with somebody, or to watch a dance performance. Single thing, doesn't have to take a lot of energy for the person, but something that the person through kind of his or her own deep memories will become part of, and that you can share in, and you can feel, we're in this, doing this together. I feel connected. It may help with that sense of loss, grievance, and mourning. You know, Zoom, for all its limits, is not nothing. It is really a way to touch out and touch people. So don't discount it, or FaceTime too. And the other is, soon the weather will get even better, and to make outdoor connections with neighbors and friends and family. So being connected, I think, is important. We're producing some materials for caregiving during crisis that might be useful, and we will have opportunities for people to sign up for the research on that. And we are also in the process of developing a fully online caregiver training program called Telesavvy at Home. So in the spirit of encouraging people to our Whit Alzheimer's Disease Research Center's research activities, here's my email. And if you are interested in being part of any of these activities, shoot me a line, and we're just creating lists at this point, but we'll absolutely get back to you. So that is it for me. Any questions, thoughts? Cornelia?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, I have one specific question as you were going through all of your content. An individual asked, can you have all three at the same time: remorse, guilt, regret? And, how do you live with it? How do you overcome it?
I think those three are just a natural trio. Remorse and regret, and what was the third? What was the third one? Grief.
Guilt, grief, regret, guilt, and remorse.
Yeah, I think they're all part of the same kind of sense of loss and maybe even a disappointment in oneself. That's where the notion of, if you're not feeling holy, then your loss and your grief and your guilt make you feel like you've sinned. And that's not what's going on. It's that you're not feeling perfect. You're not feeling connected as much as you'd like. You know that you've put yourself willingly in a position to be using yourself really, really hard, to become exhausted, to have all of your energy sapped. These are all part of what a person, does, perhaps not just sort of feet first, but gets drawn into as a caregiver. And so experiencing all those things as a sort of composite emotion, I think, is pretty natural. Dementia caregivers are twice as likely as other people who look just like them, but who aren't caregivers, to be experiencing depression, anxiety, burden, stress, all of those really negative emotions. So it goes with the territory.
One thing I'll say, and it comes up quite frequently, is because we're a research center and we do all of this engagement with the public, caregivers always come to us and say, what about a support group? Are you doing a support group? I mean, you guys are the experts. We're not putting on support groups. That's not our primary role. So can you talk about that, Ken or Monica?
I think the Alzheimer's Association's core service is the provision of support groups. And I might say that other dementia illnesses like Lewy body and frontotemporal also have support groups. So if you're not dealing with an Alzheimer's, but you're dealing with Lewy body, go to the Lewy Body Association of America website. You can find a support group locally. And I think a lot of support groups are happening online. So those are services. They're almost clinical services. And we're in the business of trying to discover new ways of benefiting those living with dementia and those caring for them. So that's our research mandate.
Okay. And I just posted your contact information because it's not your full name. It doesn't have an N on it. And so that is accurate. Thank you for the notice, Dr. Parker.
I just wanted to say that, as Dr. Hepburn has said, look at the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations that have support groups. But the Alzheimer's Association does have a list of operating support groups within your geographic area, regardless of what state you're in, whether it's Georgia, Alabama, Florida, New York. The Alzheimer's Association can point you in the direction of a specific dementia care group, but there are faith communities that will have caregiving support groups. And here locally in Metro Atlanta, the Lou Walker Senior Center has a caregiver support group. Peace Baptist Church in DeKalb County has a caregiver support group. If you have a senior center in your geographic location, you may check with those places to see what kinds of caregiving support they may or may not have. But again, the Alzheimer's Association does have a list of operating caregiving support groups in your specific geographic area. You have to check on the website, as I'm sure almost all of these are virtual at this point in time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you both. I see a couple of comments there thanking everyone for all of your insights, Ken and Monica. So we're going to turn it over to Whit. We have 10 minutes to go, and we are going to get through this content and then let you transition to the Cognitive Empowerment Program. And Matt, if you're on, if you could post the registration link, that would be great.
All right.
And Whit, I made you a co-host if you accept
Thank
that.
you very much. So for those that are joining us for the first time here, my name is Whit. I am the communications specialist for the Emory Healthy Aging and the Emory Healthy Brain Studies. And these are really, really interesting research opportunities that we would like to talk about each week during our Brain Talk Live sessions, specifically for the Emory Healthy Aging Study, because it's actually done entirely online. And before I get too far into the weeds on how you actually participate, just a kind of high level overview about the study itself. The Emory Healthy Aging Study is a longitudinal research study that we're conducting where we are collecting data from our participants once a year and looking at the patterns in that data to try and better understand Alzheimer's and other forms of age-related dementia or age-related diseases. So what the goal for us here is to have our participants complete an online health history questionnaire and then update that questionnaire once a year with any changes. And as the years progress, we're able to use that information to try and look for patterns that kind of may offer us insights into, what causes certain age-related diseases. And it also allows us to look for potential participants for other research opportunities like the Emory Healthy Brain Study. And the Emory Healthy Brain Study is actually a sub-study of ours focused on identifying the biomarkers in our bodies that will help us predict who develops Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia. So going to come back full circle here to the Healthy Aging Study. Participation with this study, it's very simple and very straightforward. It is done entirely online. So while we're all quarantined and things like that, trying to socially distance, that doesn't mean we can't participate in research opportunities, specifically ones like the Emory Healthy Aging Study. And I've got our website up here. Because it is an online research effort here, we do ask our participants that they join via the website. It's a direct link to be able to log into your portal or to create an account to be able to join. And so you'll see this big yellow button up here in the right-hand corner of the screen. It says join the study. When you actually click on that button, It's a 4-step process where we go through a registration where you create like your username and password. We do an online consent form where we get a little bit of contact information in case we need to reach out to you, and then the health history questionnaire. And then the next year, if you've signed up and joined, when it's time to update the information, don't worry, we'll email you, let you know, say, hey, it's time to update your health history questionnaire, and provide you with a link to do so. Now, the health history questionnaire, we get inquiries on what exactly is it that we're asking, and it's a pretty diverse questionnaire, but it doesn't usually take people more than about 30 minutes to do. In the questionnaire, we ask people things about, like, for example, your health history. Do you have any current diseases or sicknesses or ailments or anything like that? Any types of disabilities? But we're also looking at your lifestyle habits. We want to know more about, what's your diet like? Are you sticking to that heart healthy diet? Are you eating a lot of fruits and vegetables? We also won't care about exercise. As we mentioned earlier, what's good for your heart is good for your brain. We want to know how much exercise you're getting. And speaking of your brain, we also want to know how much you're using your brain. So we're looking at things like, are you reading online materials? Do you play instruments? Are there any other hobbies that you're doing where you may be combining, mental engagement with physical things like dancing or musical instruments? And so all of this data that we're collecting on here is helping us, again, better understand how we age, but it also helps us understand a little bit better what's the cause of certain age-related diseases, and it helps us find folks that might be a good fit for our sub-study that I'm going to talk a little bit more about here now, the Emory Healthy Brain Study. Now I'm going to pull up our page here because it's sometimes easier to have a visual guide for those that like to see things. But the Emory Healthy Brain Study is a little bit different from the aging study in that this is not done entirely online. This participation in this research study does involve coming in for a couple of short visits where we collect biosamples. We do things like a blood draw. We look at your cardiovascular system with some scans. We do a lumbar puncture. We take some MRI scans. And we ask that our participants come in once every 2 years. This works similarly to the Emory Healthy Aging Study in that it is a longitudinal study. So we are looking for changes in the data that we're collecting or any other things that we might be able to glean from that information. But on this page here, on our Emory Healthy Brain Study, we do have a breakdown of kind of what it looks like to participate in this study. But also what we have down here, some really great videos that just go over and talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that we're doing and some of the procedures and the samples that we are collecting during one of these research visits. Now, I will remind you that all of this is entirely voluntary. So if you were to, wanted to participate and then you chose you no longer wanted to, that's perfectly fine. Again, it's entirely voluntary. It does not affect your care at Emory or anything like that. And I will reiterate that generally selection for the Emory Healthy Brain Study starts with the Emory Healthy Aging Study. Because we do have people coming in, we want to look for things, for example, like making sure that you do not currently have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or MCI. And the age requirements are a little bit more strict on the brain study. We're looking for participants between the ages of 50 and 75. Whereas the Emory Healthy Aging Study done online is actually open to anyone over the ages of 18 who has an internet connection and can read and understand English. So what I have done is I have put my email address and as well as our website address into the chat section, and I can drop that back in there again, just in case you have any questions about what this study looks like. If you might be on the fence and maybe you're not sure and you want to talk to me personally, please feel free to email me with any questions or comments or concerns that you might have regarding the study, and I'd be more than happy to answer that to the best that I can. Or if you want to learn more, I can also try and put you in touch with one of our research coordinators to try and get you involved with the study.
Thank you, Whit.
Thank you so much.
Well, there you go. Check the chat, everyone. Matt, come on, because I know you have to transition over to the next session with CEP.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Doran. I'm the tech specialist for the Cognitive Empowerment Program. Like we mentioned earlier, the Cognitive Empowerment Program is another one of our research studies here at Emory. It's a intensive lifestyle program where people participate in several hours of programming similar to this, but they do it every week for an entire year. And along with several other aspects to the study, but is intended for people with mild cognitive impairment. And as part of that study, we're also putting on our own hour of content, very similar to BrainTalk Live like this. It's going to happen in 2 minutes. If you would like to participate today, I've posted the link in chat. It says CP Community Live today at 3 p.m. and has a chat link right there to register. Once you register once, you do not need to register again. You could always reuse that same link to get in. I'll be starting that webinar in 2 minutes. Today's topic is we're going to be doing another workout, kind of like John Lewis, but it's going to be our own physical therapist, Ayatoni. Ayatoni is going to be putting us through a little bit of workout, and then he's also going to be doing a Q&A session talking about answering people's questions about physical activity and other things that they can be doing for people either with mild cognitive impairment or dementia or anything else like that. So looking forward to seeing people over there, and yeah, great talk, everyone.
Can't hear you, Cornelia.
Okay, I have 3 devices going on. I'm sorry. Okay, so you've heard from all of our experts today. We will be back on this coming Tuesday, the 19th. Dr. Parker, you want to talk about Nadine Glasgow?
Sure. Dr. Nadine, our guest next week is going to be Dr. Nadine Caslow. She is a psychiatrist, and she is going to be talking to us about how we can improve our mood during this pandemic, some very specific mental health kinds of questions and support. Dr. Caslow is a psychiatrist and faculty member here at Emory, and she's been leading our departmental or our university-wide stress relieving mental health breaks here for the university. So we're looking forward to hearing from Dr. Nadine Caslow. She is a faculty professor and psychiatrist here at Emory University and Grady University Hospital. And hopefully we'll try to provide some overview about where we are with COVID. If you've been paying attention to the news, any of you who are 65 years of age and above, we need to register through the public health department, whatever your county health department is, whatever your state is, please consult your public health department and they'll tell you where immunizations are being given. Here in DeKalb County, here in Georgia, almost all of the county websites have crashed because we've had so many call-ins. But there are some private clinics that are offering the vaccine. Please go to your website, your county public health website, and get information. Beyond that, I mean, we're all waiting in line, even healthcare providers.
Okay, and in addition to our lineup for next week, we will be featuring our colleagues from the Center for Visual and Neurocognitive Rehabilitation with the Atlanta VA. You'll hear from Dr. Keith McGregor, Dr. Bruce Crossan, and Dr. Dan Wakeman. They are going to be talking about their research projects and some new imaging techniques that they are incorporating in their research program. So another opportunity to participate. Not all of our research efforts are totally shut down. People are making things work even during the pandemic, being safe and taking in all the precautions and recommendations and following protocols, but there will be a feature of our CVNR. We refer to them as the CVNR. So thank you again, and we appreciate you being here. Grab that link, go over and visit with the CEP program for a little bit more physical activity and engagement. And again, we'll see you back here next Tuesday. If you are registered for this program and you're online now, this is the link we'll be using for the remainder of the year. So save that link And again, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.